Chapter 24. Memorable Services from Waterbeach. After I had been preaching at Waterbeach for about a year or so, I was invited to conduct anniversary and other special services in various places. On several occasions, I had very curious experiences. One eccentric individual whose acquaintance I made in those early days was Mr. Porter Brown, the miller of Horton. He asked me over to preach in his chapel, and from Saturday night to Monday morning I had the felicitous misery of being his guest. I can use no other term to describe the strange mixture of emotions that I felt while under his roof. Nothing of special interest occurred the first night, but when I came downstairs the following morning, Mr. Brown said to me, "We always provide 2 eggs for the minister's breakfast on Sunday morning. The phosphorus in them feeds the brain, and it looks as though you will need plenty of mental nourishment today." I made no reply to this remark, thinking it was better to bide my time, and when I did open fire, to give him such a broadside as he did not expect. There were 3 services during the day. Mr. Brown preached in the morning, a neighbouring minister in the afternoon, and myself at night. After we had returned to my host's house and had taken supper, the good man leaned back in his easy chair, with his eyes closed and the fingertips of each hand touching, and began to soliloquize aloud. "O Lord, we thank thee for a good day all through. In the morning, Lord, thy unworthy servant was privileged to speak in thy name with some degree of liberty, and he hopes also with some measure of acceptance to the people. In the afternoon, a worthy brother preached a good, sound, solid gospel sermon, nothing very brilliant, but still likely to be useful. In the evening, Lord, we had a regular steam engine, ran over everything and everybody." Then, opening his eyes and looking across at me, he began a dialogue which, as nearly as I can recollect, ran as follows. Brown: "Young man, whoever persuaded you that you could preach?" "I believe, sir, that the Lord called me to this work, and I have found a good many people who are of the same opinion." Brown: "How long have you been a minister?" Spurgeon: "A little more than 12 months." Brown: "How many souls did you save last year?" Spurgeon: "None, sir." Brown: "None? You have been a minister 12 months, and yet there have been no souls saved? You ought to be ashamed to confess it, though if you have preached the same doctrines as you gave us tonight, I am not surprised to hear that no souls have been saved." Spurgeon: "I did not say that souls had not been saved. I said that I did not save any. I am happy to know that the Lord has saved some through my instrumentality." Brown: "Most of your brethren would have said humble instrumentality, when all the while they were as proud as Lucifer. But that is only the common ministerial cant. You knew well enough what I meant. Well, how many were converted?" Spurgeon: 21, I believe, sir." Brown: "How often do you preach?" Spurgeon: 3 times on the Sunday and once in the week at Waterbeach, and nearly every night in the week somewhere else." Brown: "We will only reckon the Sunday morning and evening sermons. Afternoon services never save anybody, and people are too sleepy to listen after dinner. So let us say 104 sermons and 21 souls saved. That is 83 sermons wasted. Indeed, we might say 103, for the whole 21 souls might just as well have been saved under one sermon. Do you live at Waterbeach? Spurgeon. No, sir. I live at Cambridge, where I teach in a school. Brown. Oh, then, you are only an apprentice boy at present, just trying your hand at preaching. Your ministry is a sort of off-hand farm, to be cultivated at odd times. What salary do your people give you? Spurgeon. £45 a year. Brown. Oh, that accounts for everything. Souls can't be saved under £100 a year. That is, of course, where the people can afford to pay it, and that amount is little enough for any minister. Well, now, my young friend, let me give you a bit of good advice. You'll never make a preacher, so just give it up and stick to your teaching. When, in after years, I reminded him of his advice and prophecy, he used waggishly to say, there's no knowing how much good a man may do by a little timely correction. No doubt my sharp speech put you on your mettle. That was really the case, though not in the sense he meant. I soon discovered that he was a rank Arminian, and when he attacked the Calvinism that was so dear to me, I denounced his system of doctrine as being worthless theology. I found that he used to give his money to different missionary societies according to the proportion of converts they reported as brought to the Lord at the lowest possible cost. He would take the various annual reports, divide the amount expended by the number of additions to the churches, and then subscribe the most where the amount per head was the least. There was a modicum of truth at the back of what he said. But I was really shocked by the way he talked about conversions being dependent upon the money contributed. So I spoke out my opinion as freely as he did his, and gave him a Roland for his Oliver, without the slightest compunction. It was a battle royal, and both the old gentleman and the prentice boy grew sufficiently warm. But no scars remained on either combatant. On the Monday morning, Mr. Brown walked to Huntington with me in loving conversation, and afterwards sent me Haldane's Life as a present, with his sincere regards, and I, whom he had horrified with his doctrinal statements, felt an inward drawing towards the bluff heretic. No doubt he purposely put forward his most outer views of doctrine on that occasion to draw out the youthful preacher, probably intending to set him right on many points. But he had an unpromising pupil to deal with, one who had no fear of Port or Brown, or Professor Finney, or any other Arminian before his eyes, but held his own opinion with a firmness which interested and did not displease the good but eccentric Miller, who had usually dealt with softer material when criticizing the young gentleman who preached in his chapel on Sundays.